My name is Sarah-Bryan Lewis. This is Everything is Okay podcast.
Cool.
I feel like that felt good.
I felt it.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Ben, how are you doing over there?
Fantastic.
Great. You ready for us to spitball?
There you go.
Damn.
Ready?
Cool.
I'm terrified of spitballing.
Oh, you're going to be great.
Okay. I'm sure to answer you.
Yeah, so here I am with one of my closer friends in Hattiesburg. We've been, I guess we've been making music for how many years now?
Is it 8 or longer? No, it's right the year before you got married.
Yeah, so longer than 8.
Longer than 8.
There you go.
Good job.
Don't check that, Hannah. So we're sitting in your living room right now, and personally, I'm super offended because I moved into a new house well before you moved into this one, and this looks like something off of HDTV. Care to comment?
No, it just took a lot of anxiety to get here. That's what you have to have.
So
I don't do boxes.
I'm missing anxiety.
Yeah, you
All
need
right.
more. You need more of your anxiety.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll try to channel that.
Yeah.
I try not to like rage on my children
Okay.
because that's bad fatherhood.
Yeah.
Like that's like fatherhood 101. And I try not to rage on my wife. How do you do with Thomas?
We do pretty good,
Okay.
but we don't have children, so we kind of do our separate.
Okay, so y'all are
things.
just
If I want to rage, he's like, "I'm not doing this," and just
Separate
walks off.
but
It's
equal.
impossible to fight with someone who refuses to fight. So,
Okay.
yeah, I just have to.
So what do you do? Where do you put that rage? Because I know you have it in you.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a long time.
I break flower pots. I keep
On
terracotta
purpose?
flower. Well, sometimes if I have a bad day at work, I have some terracotta flower pots, and I just take them and I smash them,
Okay.
and then just kind of sweep them out, repurpose them. You
All
know?
right.
It's healing.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this has been in the works for several years. You didn't know this,
No.
but I've been trying to like find the right time to ask you to come on the podcast.
Okay.
James and Brad, my co-hosts, wanted me to get this like last year, and I failed.
Okay.
So you're here now.
Okay.
We're pretty excited
I was
about
pretty
it.
free last year.
Oh,
a little offended.
We all were. Yeah. I could have been in a better spot for most of last year, but yeah, I wanted to talk to you today to really dig into what makes Sarah-Bryan tick. And the thing that honestly I'm obsessed with your songwriting. Apparently I'm in a band with you.
You are in a band with me.
Yeah. What's that band called?
The Squid and the Whale.
Oh snap, y'all have heard those songs on the podcast before. So Sarah-Bryan, I want you to like let's start at the beginning. Like I want to dig in to what makes you tick. You know that this podcast is like we cover a lot of topics, but the three of us have a core foundation in the evangelical church.
Yes.
And rumor has it that you also started in that church growing up. Is that true or false?
It's true.
Long time ago.
Long
Okay.
time ago. I did a long time ago.
So let's start with like growing up. Like tell me about mom, dad, the family, and how do you think that has made you into the person that you are today?
Oh,
and you can share as much or as little as you want.
It all started on August 8th, 1987,
Okay.
when I had no choice and got thrown into this world. No, I'm just kidding. I'm really fortunate.
It's a good starting spot. It's a good starting spot.
Let's
Yeah.
start by dooming. I'm really fortunate because my parents are still together, and I feel like that's not super common, and I try to like realize that I'm extremely lucky to have parents that are still together. So growing up, there was a lot of like family oriented activities. You know, we had like game night every Friday night.
Pottery. You did a lot of pottery.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course.
We all got in trouble all the time. I have two brothers. So my mom Sundays used to lock us outside and we'd just like run through the neighborhood being crazy.
Yeah. And this is in Alabama?
No, it started in South Georgia.
Okay.
Edison, Georgia. There's one stoplight in the town, and when they put it in, it made the front page of the paper. There's one bank. You drive 45 minutes to the hospital.
Okay.
So
what's it close to for people familiar with Georgia?
Literally nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
No, I mean, I would say it's east of Dothan, Alabama.
Okay, I
like
know Dothan.
an hour.
All right.
And it's like 45 minutes south of Albany, Georgia, which I don't know. That was like the big town.
No, I know both of those towns. Yeah. So that would put you right in the middle of. Aren't there some like crazy insects that live in South Georgia that everybody complains about? Am I wrong there?
I don't know if they're crazy. I'm completely desensitized to it.
I bring it up because my parents lived in Cleveland, Mississippi for a couple years, and every time I would go up there, I feared the mosquitoes.
Okay.
And we're in Hattiesburg, Mississippi right now. Like, we have mosquitoes, but when you go up to the Delta, those mosquitoes are like twice the size, and they're out to kill, right?
Mutants.
So, yeah, I stopped at a gas station, opened my door, and immediately screamed like a little girl and shut my door aggressively because the mosquitoes came into my car and started feasting on me. I don't know if you have any memory of that over there. Gnats. Okay.
Like when you see like a horse and there's like gnats all around their eyes and their lips, that's what it was like outside at dusk.
Got it.
And I thought that was normal, but nowhere else have I encountered that
so
except
it's the
there.
gnats.
Yeah,
yeah. And that's obviously influenced your writing, but like
exactly.
we can dive into that.
That's pretty much what it's all about. I have a lot of deep-seated issues due to that. But no, it started out in Edison, Georgia, a really small town, and then we moved to Tallahassee, Florida when I was like, I don't know, 8 or 9. I thought it was a really big city. And then I made friends and put down roots. And then my parents kind of picked the whole family up when I was 13 and moved to Madison, Mississippi, which is the worst thing to do to a 13-year-old girl.
Oh, no doubt.
Know?
Yeah. So were you artsy fartsy back then? Like, would you label yourself as like counterculture?
Yeah, I was real weird. If that helps.
I was too.
But my parents were really strict on TV time, and I was the first kid, so my mom was kind of a helicopter mom. So a lot of the things that I did as an outlet, it was outside, painting, drawing, singing. My parents are both music majors, so we all grew up music-wise. Like my mom started all of us out on piano. She was our piano teacher, which was a big mistake because teaching your children, you have children.
I do.
So can you imagine, there's not that boundary there between like the teacher and the student.
Oh, sure. I mean, my mom did the same thing with us. Like, we started with piano, and we very quickly did not think piano was sexy.
Exactly. And now we're adults, and we're like, oh, why did we stuck with that? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know. I'm just like, why aren't we like pointing out Elton John? You know, like, and my dad listened to Elton John. I didn't put it together, you know. And then I was thinking about like in high school, I got into Ben Folds.
Okay.
And I was just like, ooh,
that could have been us.
That could have been us. Yeah. But luckily we have Jaime. But let's stay on you though. Let's stay on you. So you make this move. You had friends in Tallahassee.
I did.
And you missed those friends.
Oh yeah.
You moved to Madison, Mississippi. So to our listeners and we have a lot outside of Mississippi, how would you describe Madison, Mississippi to an outsider who's never heard of it, doesn't know what's going on?
That's nice. It's like, all
right.
I don't want to be offensive.
We can be. It's fine.
It's basically there's a lot of money.
Okay.
A lot of people that have lived there grew up there. They may have gone off to school. They came back. They had children there.
So deep roots.
Very deep roots.
Would you call it old money?
Like
old
absolutely.
Miss, old money? Okay.
Oh yeah,
all right.
old money.
All right.
Everything is brick. I'm sure you know that.
I do know that, true. Yeah.
When we go up to Jackson, like there's a line on Highway 51, and in the distance you can see Madison. Mm-hmm. And we're actually up there visiting my brother last week. And I told Thomas, I was like, the light doesn't touch there. We don't go there. We don't go to Madison, Mississippi.
I
hated it.
Not good memories.
Oh, not good memories at all. But like some very defining memories. That's the thing. It's you're kind of forced to, come from a very transient area, which I did kind of in the Panhandle. And then you move to a place where you don't know anybody, and that, your brain is still growing and processing on a social aspect.
I gotta stop you here. What are you feeling? What are you feeling your first day of school in Madison?
Oh, terror. Sheer terror. Yeah.
All right. Explain to me why, besides the obvious, like, oh, I'm in a new school, I don't know anybody. Like, did things seem different? Did people... Was it a different type of culture that you were going into from Tallahassee? Or?
Yeah, I was lucky that my mom had kind of helped foster a situation where I had been kind of insulated by people who embraced being different.
Okay.
And then when you go from that and you think that's the norm and you think everybody's like that, you go to a completely different place where being different is kind of something that people tend to just kind of look at or ostracize. Not to say that I didn't make friends. I eventually did.
Yeah.
But it was very hard, I think, for my personality type. I remember my brothers came home from school crying the first day because their clothes were not in style.
Yeah.
So my mom immediately, and she was just trying to be that mom because she was like, I've got to fix this. Trashed their clothes, took them somewhere and got them clothes so they could go to school and fit in. Yeah.
Wow.
And I like to take the harder approach. So I actively was like, all right, I'm not doing it. So I held myself back a lot too because, I kind of had expectations after that where I kind of put up a wall and I was like, well, then I just won't have any friends and I'll hate my parents and I'll sit in my room all the time,
So would you say that, is this a point where you're starting to rebel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I remember.
Tell me about that.
I remember what I did. This is so stupid because you think about when you're younger like that. So at this point I'm 15, we 2 years start trying to break in. When you're 15, you think you're old and you know everything. And I thought would be really cool is if I got colored contacts, but I got a blue one and a green one.
Okay.
And I wore them together.
Nice.
I thought I was just so...
Dude, take that, people.
So cool. Oh, yes. You know what I mean? And I remember that's when I started really, deep diving into music, too. I had on my bedroom door, my dad was really supportive and he was like, whatever you want to do creatively, just go for it. I would write lyrics, and of course super angsty lyrics, all over my bedroom door. My parents would let me do it.
What lyric? Name a band that you're writing lyrics
Oh
from.
my gosh, I can't even remember. You can't
remember what you were listening to?
Okay, I think one was Ani DeFranco's I'm Not a Pretty Girl.
Okay.
That is not what I do. I am no damsel in distress.
That's what's up. So you're listening to Ani DeFranco at 15?
Oh, yeah. My dad, listening well before that, actually, because my dad was really into her. And my dad was really into songwriters and stuff like that. So if I was in the car with my mom, we were listening to, classical or NPR.
Okay.
Or, oldies. And at the time, I didn't like oldies. As an adult, I'm like, that stuff's great.
Yeah.
But my dad, riding home from anywhere with him was free reign. I could get a cassette because cassettes exist. They're tiny rectangular things for people who may not know what they are that are listening. And he would let me play it, and if I wanted to repeat it just over and over and over again on the drive home, he'd let me do that. And I remember he let me say Sarah McLachlan has a song called Building a Mystery, and it has the F word in it.
Oh.
And my dad would let me sing the F word in that song.
You'd scream it.
Oh, yeah. He was like, if it's in a song, it's okay. So he'd just turn it up, and I just sing it. I felt so cool. But then as far as, rebelling wise, got into high school, and I did finally get a good group of friends. Some of them were older, but they were all into music. So I decided I wanted to try to play guitar. And my dad bought me a guitar. And my parents kind of fostered that. So then what I did is I started taking experiences or feelings and just trying to write songs. And some of the first songs I ever wrote are just horrifying. I can't
hope
even
so.
remember a lot of them, but there is a book somewhere in this house of them. And of course, it's like what 15, 16-year-olds think about.
Oh, yeah.
Just the really trivial
you should see
stuff.
my journal scratchings.
Well, that's what it is
yeah.
for me. I didn't journal. I wrote songs, which was my journal.
There you
So,
go.
and it was great.
So, tell me a little bit. I really do think listeners want to know, like, when you say you were like acting out, so or rebelling or whatever, like, what did you do? I mean, were you stealing stuff? Like, were you?
No, I have never stolen anything in my life.
You heard it here, everyone.
I'm dead
You heard
serious.
it.
The idea of stealing something, it just instills so much panic.
Okay.
What I did when I rebelled is first of all, I took it out on my mom. I think a lot of, and I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there that understand this, the mother-daughter situation gets real hairy as girls age, if they have a connection with their mother, which I'm fortunate to have. But I really did like funnel a lot of that towards my mother. And then when I got, at senior year and then early college, it turned into a lot of drug use, basically. Okay. Because I didn't really have opportunities to rebel until I got to be about that age. And, I would still come home for the summers and I would come home on the weekends. And so my true rebellion, when it wasn't just like having a really sharp tongue at home, a lot of it would probably be recreational drug use, which I'm not ashamed of, because we all have like our experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So how would you say that transition from high school to college, and so you went to Southern Miss.
I did.
University of Southern Mississippi, to the top. How is that transition, excuse me, getting out of Madison? So let me just say that I assume that a lot of people from Madison went to the, Ole Miss or private schools or Mississippi State. Were there a lot of high school people that you knew that went down to Southern Miss?
There were a few. That's
Okay.
actually why I ended up going to Southern Miss. My dad didn't talk to me for a month when I came down here. And it's because my dad worked at Millsaps. And tuition for children of faculty is significantly cheaper at Millsaps.
Okay.
And so it was planned. I was going to go to Millsaps. And of course, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I still don't sometimes. But the last week before semester started, I wanted to follow some of the friends I had made that they were already in college. I wanted to follow them down here.
Oh, okay.
And I told my parents, and I remember we were at a Sonic drive-thru when I told them this. And my dad was so angry. But regardless of how angry he was, he let me do it.
Okay. Well, that's
And they
good.
helped me move in. And my parents have helped me with college. So once again, I'm extremely privileged.
Right.
But I think that was a very big rebellion, actually, I was finally like, I'm not going to do this. I want to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it may have not been for the right reasons, but I, to this day, think it was probably the best decision I ever made. As an 18-year-old who has no idea what decisions are sometimes.
So you actually, you may not know this, but do you know that, I bargained with my parents because they moved to Oak Grove when I was a senior in high school. Have I told you that story? Mm-mm. So that's how I got down to Mississippi, right? So we were moving out of Claremore, Oklahoma. I was here for 2-3 weeks, and everything felt so different and weird. And I was just like, I don't drive a big truck. I don't wear bright clothes. I don't have short shorts. I had much like you, I had a pretty serious culture shock when I came to Hattiesburg. And I was a senior in high school, right? So when you're a senior, you're just the world's your oyster.
Yeah.
You don't want to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
I got down here, and my brother Daniel and then Mary and Joe all had to go to Oak Grove schools. And I basically begged my parents to let me move back to Oklahoma. And they said, after I'm sure tears, at least on my mom's side, all right, but you got to come back and go to school close to us.
Okay.
And so that's how I ended up at Southern Miss. And I fell in love with the school.
Yeah.
It was very quickly did I realize, oh, this is different. This is different than the Hattiesburg that I saw in my like high school mind when I came down here.
Well, we're still here. I mean, it's a great town.
Yeah,
it really is.
It is a great town, and there was something different about. I guess it's because Southern Miss definitely has a strong liberal arts kind of presence to it. And when did you find your safe haven? And was it a coffee shop, or was it like, what was when you were in Hattiesburg, like what was the thing that you would go to feel like safe?
To feel safe.
Or connected. Yeah.
I don't know if there was a certain place. I feel like the safest I was, a friend of mine that I met while I was here, at night we would just get in her car and we would drive at nighttime all around town. Just cruising. And the passenger seat of her car was like our safe haven. We both felt, and I don't remember, I think she had like a Firebird or something like real light and real low to the ground. And I just remember we'd be down there in the seat and just driving through Hattiesburg. Were y'all like
cruising for boys? Or
absolutely not.
No.
We were just
none of that. Y'all were just
cruising.
Hanging out, just getting out. Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you find the Hippo?
So I think that I was probably 20. I stumbled upon the Hippo because, it was the old Hippo. And I started going out to shows. It used to be like Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. Those were the nights you would go to the bar.
Absolutely.
And the Hippo has always had good music. And then I discovered, I think it was on Wednesday nights maybe, that they had open mic nights. And that's where it started. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I went to see a friend do open mic, and I was like, well, I've never, I had played in Madison. I worked at Cups, and we would play music up there.
It's a coffee shop for folks that don't know. Yeah.
And I would play there with one of my friends, Erica Lee.
Shout out to Erica.
Yes. And we would play at Cups. It was always covers. When I met her is when I started playing, like at the coffee shop. We did like the school talent show. We did an Isley song. Okay. I don't know if you remember Isley.
I do.
I don't remember what song it was. Or I think it was, or no, it was a Sixpence None the Richer song. It was the Down and Out of Time.
All right.
Yeah.
Now you're speaking
yes.
Yeah.
And then I had another friend named Miriam, and she played guitar, and so we'd play together. But I never like played just like, in a bar. Like that was my first time. So I decided to go up and start doing open mic nights. And
how much like courage did that take for you? Now you had played the coffee shops, but you're going to a bar. And for folks that haven't heard of the Thirsty Hippo that are listening, like this is the quintessential Hattiesburg like music venue dive bar. And in the early 2000s, there was nothing quite like it. We both still adore it, but like the people that were part of it initially, and luckily I got here in 2004, so I got to experience it, I think, in 2005 for the first time. But, oh my gosh. I mean...
going down that long hallway.
Yeah, the long, dark hallway.
Then it opens up into the room,
yeah,
and there's little lights.
Your, like, $2 Abita Ambers or whatever. It was insane.
Yeah. It was cool. The thing is, so at that time... because I had just gotten out of the house, I was like completely uninhibited. And that was like a very small period of time where I did not have any like concern about how I would be viewed or how I would fit in. Because I had entered this world of college, and there's something for everybody in college, and there's people for everybody. So I showed up and I played. And I would play, I think, it turned into like every week I would go and I'd go sign up.
Okay.
And it was always covers. And I remember Brad Newton said something to me one night. Where...
he said his name. Brad Newton, the owner of the Thirsty Hippo. One of the owners at that time.
I would start asking him after I played every time, how was it? And he'd go, it's good. it's good. You know, he was really nice. And then one night he looked at me and he said, I played a Cranberries cover. And I got done and he was like, hey, he was like, don't play Cranberries. And I was like, why? And he said, this is what he said. He said, it's a good song. I'm not saying it's not good. He said, but if you want to be more than just a person with a guitar, you need to be playing your own stuff. And because every now and then I had played like one of my originals with like, 3 or 4 covers. And when he said that, that's when I was like, okay, I guess I need to start playing my originals. So I started doing just tiny little open mic sets of originals. And I remember that's what he told me. And I took it seriously because
because it was Brad, though.
Because it was Brad, and he knows what he's talking about, and he has great music taste. But that's what he said. He said, if you want to be more than just a person with a guitar, you're going to have to play your originals. And he wasn't wrong. Mm-hmm. And I've never played the Cranberries ever again. So.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Man. So I knew Jaime in college, Jaime Jimenez. And we actually went on a trip together and played in a band and had, that was when we became friends for the first time. It was really cool. When did you meet Jaime Jimenez?
I met Jaime, he was working for his dad and I was working for the, this little coffee shop that was in the Lincoln Center at the Medical Plaza. And we met because he'd come in for coffee, and then we ended up being in the same classes in school. So we started sitting by each other in school, and I knew he played piano, and, I played guitar, so I thought, well, you want to, just play some music? And we would go down to the basement over in the music building because he was a student, so he had the key. And it's just all these tiny little rooms with just a piano. And I didn't even know that existed there. And we just go down there and just play music.
Do you remember what year this was?
Oh, gosh, no. I think I was...
It's 2005?
I think I was 20 or 21. So, what would that be, 2007-ish?
Okay.
I don't know. I'm a very early 30s. 40.
Yeah, you were super early 30s.
So, you just, do the math, it's basically 5 years ago.
So y'all started playing, and y'all also dated.
We did.
You want to talk a little about that?
I mean, I can if you really want to know. No, it's just a classic case of we played music together, so we thought, oh yeah, I guess that means we should date. I mean, that's what it comes down to, and there's not a musician listening right now that has not done that same thing.
I don't think people are judging right now.
I'm just saying, no, it's it's the classic thing. It's just two musicians. It's because when you play music together, you start that's your one time to really be vulnerable.
Right.
So when you share vulnerabilities, sometimes you go, oh, okay, well maybe this is some other type of intimacy.
Right.
So we dated, we wrote music. We ended up realizing we were very good friends, and that was it. So, but we still continue to play music together because I think that when people date, if it's on good terms and they were more friends to begin with than anything, then you can still be friends with someone that you had a stint with. You know what I mean?
And y'all are.
Also, he has a phenomenal girlfriend right now. I just want to point that out. She's amazing.
You also have a beautiful and magical husband.
Awesome husband.
Yeah.
He's a barber. He'll cut your hair.
He will.
He's great.
He just cut my hair.
He just cut David's hair.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting dynamic though, because so you start playing at the Hippo, you meet Jaime, y'all start making music together, and then y'all create something. Even after y'all have broken up, y'all continue a relationship in music. And anybody that's seen y'all on stage play, whether or not with the Squid and the Well or one of the many other band names that y'all have had, Narwhals comes to mind.
Yeah. Well, he went to Boston, and when he moved to Boston, I started a band called Vanilla Jane.
Oh.
And all the CDs.
So I don't know much about.
Yes.
But do you want to talk? Is there anything that kind of hops in your mind or jumps out from like the early days before that?
We all met because we were in school together, and it was me and a girl named Danielle, and a guy named Sam. He played bass.
Okay.
And then Justin Nunez, who runs Groove House with his wife. He played guitar. And then after Sam, we actually had, it was kind of a Mod Podge. We had like some people that interchanged. But it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. Colin Taylor ended up kind of being the main bass player. And so it was the four of us for a while. That was the first time I did an album. So that was really cool. That was my first thing.
On the internet?
It's not. I actually have all the CDs in a box, and if I die, there's someone that knows exactly how to burn them because you will never hear those. But the thing is, it's fun. It's like a time capsule.
I think we can make some money with that right now.
Baby Sarah-Bryan did an okay job. And of course, like the musicians that I played with were great. Danielle was great. Justin is awesome. Colin was great. My brother came in and played drums for some songs. Yeah. Yes, it was a lot of fun. It was like the first time I'd ever done anything like that as like a band. And you know, it disbanded, and Jaime moved back. And that's when me and Jaime started playing again. Then we got Stephen Scott, Cody Anthony, turned into the Narwhals. So it's just kind of like, basically, I feel like
continued to evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The I would love for you to talk about how you have dealt with aspects of your personality that are both a blessing and a curse. Right. So when it comes to I think you're an amazing songwriter, someone who is committed to her craft, but also at times may experience anxiety, which a lot of us do. You're great on guitar. Like, how have you dealt with the spotlight or being recognized around town, or the feelings that you may get before a big show? Like, how has that impacted you?
I feel like there's like two sides to the coin on that. In a lot of ways, I've not dealt with it very well. I feel like I've gotten in my own way so much that there are moments that I should have enjoyed significantly more where I didn't, and it wasn't the situation, it was me. The thing about me is I'm detail oriented. I'm a people pleaser. I'm a perfectionist. You of all people have seen how like far the pendulum can swing that way. And I think that because of that, I like to kind of turn it into this situation where it kind of bounces directly back at me as this big imposter syndrome situation.
Okay.
So
you don't feel like you deserve it?
I don't deserve it, or I'm not as good as some moments where I think I am. Or, you know, because I think I misidentify, like if I write a song and I'm like, yes, I feel really good about that. All of a sudden I go, well, that's just my ego. And my biggest thing is ego is such a bad thing in music. And you have to like harness that really well. So my whole thing is this aversion to ego. So even giving my own self a compliment on something I write, I go, oh, well, I shouldn't be saying that about me. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things I was telling Thomas the other night. You know, I have a show coming up, and I haven't played just by myself in years. I think I did for 15, 20 minutes for Equinox like 2-3 years ago. But I'd say in the past 10 years, I probably play like twice by myself because I like to bury myself a lot. I like to surround myself with, really good musicians. And it's not self-serving. It's just, I feel, it's almost like a helmet and knee pads and everything because it's like I can write these songs, but I don't feel like I have the capacity to present those songs in a way that people might enjoy. That like as if maybe me by myself is not enough.
Not enough. Yeah.
Which is something I struggle with. And, I was telling Thomas the other night, it's like, some of my favorite things. We went to Jason Isbell's show, who's a phenomenal songwriter. I love him. He's one of my favorites. We went.
Lots of love.
Oh, gosh. We went a few months ago, and he played with his band, but then they all stepped back, and he did just an acoustic song by himself, just strumming. And, or I go around town, and I see local musicians, just them and their guitar, and it's phenomenal. And I eat that up. I think it's great. And I do not necessarily, I don't think I've offered myself that same courtesy. Because when it's anybody else with a guitar, I'm like, that's it. That's emotive and it's intimate. But then the idea of me doing that, I'm like, oh, that's just not going to be enough though. You know what I mean? So, which I've had to, I think sit with for the past 2 years with the pandemic. Because I've basically been sitting in my room and playing my guitar. And so I'm trying to get more comfortable with that, that it's okay that it should be enough because it should be enough for me, and it's more of that.
Okay,
if that makes any sense.
It does. I think this may be a good time for you to sit with your guitar and play something for us.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
I can do that.
All right.
Okay.
Well, do you have anything in mind that you would like to play? Yeah,
I'm going to do a song that all of my songs are now under 4 minutes. David. And
I never requested that. For the audio.
But with this song, I decided what to do is to write it and enjoy the pause in the space. And not to, basically I wrote the song. It doesn't have a chorus. It's like 3 minutes long. It's poetry. And I went to try to add a chorus in there and I was like, oh, this cheapens it. But in my head I was like, well, it has to have a form. And we're sitting on the porch the other night and Thomas was like, art does not have to have any form. So I think that I would like to play that one. Well, if that's cool with you.
We would love to hear it.
Cool.
So that's great.
All right. Look alive, shaken up so violently. Growing up requires to fight. Now crowding a menagerie, and my arm, it's in my thigh. Wish I could cry, but that involves a feeling, and people pay to see the good things. Am I a good thing? Magnify, concentrate the sun on me, and I am small under the heat. Wish I could lie, but that involves a feeling, and people love to see the bad things. Am I a bad thing? Just play whenever.
Go for it.
Brought a lot of grace to that old wooden chair with my claws in the lumber. Didn't set my own place. Now I'm tearing at the carpet. I'm the rug out from under. And I break the same things. We don't do parties here, 'cause I break the great things. Tried to scrub your own name, wash my arms, but the heat drew it out in the mirror. Every letter traced. I'm the knee with the bruises, and you were the altar. And I break the same things. And we don't do parties here, 'cause I break the great things. I break the same things. We don't do parties here, 'cause I break the great things. Watch it all fall on me. Watch it all fall on me. So break it all. Let me break it all. Gonna burn it all down. Gonna paint my whole face. I'm the ash, I'm the ember. Never set my own place. You're the throne made for lighting, and I am the fire. 'Cause I break the same things. And we don't do parties here, 'cause I break the great things. And I break the same things. And we don't do parties here, 'cause I break the great things. And we don't do parties here.
Well, hello.
Hey,
We're back.
we are.
So tell us a little bit about that second song you played.
The second song.
Ow!
Oh my god.
Like, what is it called? Where did it
Um,
come from? That sort of thing.
It's called Parties.
I love parties.
Yeah.
We're having our own little party right
I
now.
like small parties. Like, this
Yeah.
is a cool party. I'm not a big party gal. Now, the song is called Parties, and you probably, well, you specifically, nobody else would know this, but because it's never been recorded, but the song Gladys Knight that we did.
Yes.
So it's a take on that as far as the verse chord structure, which is clear. Obviously, it's up like a key. But all that being, mainly it's because Gladys Knight, the song, was a very detailed song. At that time period, I was in a way of writing where I wanted to put a listener in that moment. But the problem is that moment was a very private, specific moment between me and another person.
Oh, tell us everything, all the details.
It's not sexual.
Okay.
Don't
Right.
get excited. No, actually, and it's fitting that you're asking because we're going to talk about God.
Okay.
No,
let's talk about God for a second.
Let's take it back. So with Gladys Knight, it was a specific moment in time that I desperately wanted to remember. There was a woman that came in when I was very little and helped my mom essentially raise me. And she's someone that I spent time with up until a few years ago. And I was raised in the church. We discussed that earlier on. I have since, in my later teens, I do not identify as a Christian.
Sure.
My mom does, and she's a wonderful example of good Christians, as are you. I find you to be a very inspiring representation to your religion. I am very spiritual, but throughout like my young adult life, before just acknowledging that it was okay to not put a name on the way I feel and to find my meaning where I deem necessary. For a while, this woman kind of became my church.
Okay.
And I've said this before, that's fine. But I ended up putting her on a pedestal. And when you make a person your God, people are not permanent and they leave. And then when they leave, the moral code that you've built around, this essential like worship of this person, you're just left with yourself. And I think that for a period of like, my 20s and stuff, that's what I did with her. That song, Gladys Knight, was a very specific memory when I was visiting with her. And that was a day that I wanted to remember deeply. And so what I did was I wrote a very detailed song. But the problem is, when I sing it, it takes me back to that place. And I think that there are some moments that are sacred and that should be left in just your heart. So, when she passed, I remember telling you I can't play Gladys Knight anymore. I just can't do it.
Right.
And I still can't. Grief is weird, and it's weird to experience grief as an adult. Those who haven't had to face it yet in certain forms as adults are very lucky, but it's coming. And we all, it's true. People we love are going to leave. And the way I channel my grief is I do not feel it. And my mom's always said there's no wrong way to grieve. There's no right way to grieve. But, as far as my grief goes with that song, the inability to say the name, to see the face, to think about memories, a lot of that is like wrapped up, in that song. That song is, for lack of a better word, a little triggering. So what I did is I took post after my person has left and formulated where am I now? And this song is like an ode to that. Like who am I without her? So if that makes any sense.
It does,
and the thing is it's one of those songs where I really wanted in my writing to leave room for interpretation. It's really hard, unless you're telling a story and you want everybody to be in that specific story, you kind of get a little trapped in the meaning of your song. And so for parties, what I really wanted is to put it out there because I feel like anybody who identifies with grief can identify with that feeling. So for me, it was a way to feel pain, but also inspire someone else that may be sharing pain in that way.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, like, music has always been that for me, of how to access emotions that I either from socialization or internalize that I'm not supposed to access.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Which is not great. I mean, I'm hoping that society is moving more towards this understanding that, like, regardless of gender or like how you identify, it's a good thing and an effective thing to be able to access a range of emotion.
Oh yeah.
And dudes are stereotypically pretty good at, like, I don't know, hitting like 3 or 4 emotions, and there's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And when something traumatic happens, or death happens, or grief happens, it's like, how do you access that? How do you work through it? And ignoring it or putting it into a box and like putting it somewhere safe inside of you is like, it's a nice stopgap strategy.
Yeah.
But it seems like for me it catches up eventually.
Oh, yeah. It's a nice stopgap until you hit your elbow on the door frame and then you embarrass yourself. You know what I mean? I mean, that's what's so funny about it. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting too. I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like the older I get, the more I'm trying to access certain emotions, but like from a society stance, I'm also trying to tone things down. And so I'm like writing this line between like I am there for people and I am an open book, but like at the end of the day, a lot of times I guess I'm just kind of emotionally impotent. And I mean, I hate that. I mean,
so you're kind of dude-like in that regard.
In some ways, I mean, that has been, it used to not be like that. But the older I've gotten, you know what I mean? And so I find that like ability to...
I don't expand on that. What do you mean?
So
the older you get, you feel like you have less access to a range of emotions that maybe you were more comfortable with when you were younger?
I think when I was younger, like my mom was very much like encouraging of like, feel your feelings, you know, let's talk it out. Let's talk about your feelings. Feel all the feelings on the spectrum, you know, and then you get older and then you're like, oh, you can't do that in public. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then it's more of, it's like trying to fine tune who you are to present to the world around you. But if you do it too much, what happens is you look up one day. You know, the thing is, like, I think a very healing thing is, like, every now and then we should all be just sobbing in our cars. I think it's very cathartic. And every now and then I'll feel it well up and I'm like, okay, it's ready. I'm getting there. And then it just goes away.
Do you have a record? Like, do you have a record or like an album, or like, how do you access that when you need it?
Well, I think that this pandemic is, you know, because I told you recently that I felt like there was the pandemic and everybody stay inside, and then the year later was like psychological warfare. And so I feel like for the past year I've actually had to sit and think on that. And so I found that writing, you know, is helping me access emotions in a better, healthier way. It's
an outlet, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I love. I was thinking about. Did you ever watch Bambi? Yeah. That was a movie. That was like the first movie that I remember that like made me cry.
Yeah.
And it's like there's not a lot of people that have seen me cry, and that's something that's like hard for me to do, even in like appropriate situations. But I found that like music is one of the ways that I can access emotions that for whatever reason I've like locked up or guarded, you know, and or I just put on the movie Bambi. So is it okay for a 36-year-old to like watch Bambi alone and then weep?
I feel like whatever like is your feeling and your truth, David, I want you to just like dig deep and work that out.
Well, thank you.
Mine was Dumbo.
Yes,
Specifically, do you
that's
remember
a
Dumbo?
really fucked up
When
movie.
she reaches through the cage and cradles him.
Yeah.
Like, that's why we have problems now as adults, is because we grew up on stuff like that. I'm just saying.
His
Disney trauma.
dude, his mom got shot. And then Land Before Time.
Yeah,
did you ever watch
Before
Land
Time
Before
was
Time?
Sad, yeah.
Dude,
Fox and the Hound.
Yes. Yeah, like the music that hits in Land Before Time when the shadow of his mom is like going on the wall.
Yeah.
Like I can feel it inside of me right now. Like I'm like, oh, okay, that's soul crushing.
Yeah,
like
it's terrible.
Yeah. So the Squid and the Whale. That's a band.
Speaking of sad
That's a
stuff.
thing. Yeah.
No.
Speaking of sad music. So the Squid and the Whale is a thing that we've been a part of.
Oh, yes.
It's been really magical. It started with, if my memory serves me right, I moved back to Hattiesburg from Charlotte, North Carolina in 2012. I ran into Jaime at a farmer's market. And
Both of us. And you said, oh, that's cool. I'm going to play with y'all. And we were like, okay.
Is that true?
Yeah, you didn't ask.
That's
you
what
did
I
not
said?
ask. You were like, okay, cool. So when's practice? And we were like, what? And then
Why
you
does
texted and
anybody-
you were like, so when are we meeting? And Jaime, I told Jaime, I was like, well, tell him to come then. Let's just see what happens. And it was
Why
great.
does anybody talk to me?
'Cause you're great.
Who behaves like that?
You.
Isn't that incredibly inappropriate?
No, it's amazing. It's like all the parts that that is like who I want to be.
Oh,
I mean,
don't.
in some facet, I want to harness a part of it. Not all of it, but just some of it.
You're saying that for
Because
real?
you and I are oil and water. And if I could just like have a little bit more, not in a bad way.
We're
I'm saying,
oil and water?
No, it's just like you're confident, you know, and you go tell people, I'm going to play with you. I'm going to show up at your house and just play music. And everybody's like, okay, that's fine. You know? And I'm like, hey, is it maybe like, I don't know, okay, if maybe you think about being my friend and sharing my space. But if I'm not good enough, that's fine. You know? Very different. Very different methods, you know?
Yeah, okay. I'm glad that you operate like you do. Like a kind and
somewhere between us is a
conscientious.
good
Yeah,
person.
There's probably a good spot in the middle. Yeah. No, I think I was looking for a reason to. I was desperate. Let me say that I was desperate to connect with something meaningful when I moved back to Hattiesburg, and finding out about Jaime, playing with you. I knew, like, I either met you or I'd heard you or heard of your name when I was in college, and I think I was like, oh, they're a duo? I should play with them. Like,
Yeah.
that's where my mind went. Like, oh, I can do something. And I remember us, like, sitting down in your house when you lived close
On
to
South 17th.
Yeah, on
that
South
big
17th.
bay window room. Yep.
our first little get together, and I think I was like, hey, I wrote some stuff and it wasn't good, but I showed it to you. So that was nice. And then we started playing music together, and
August is for Lovers. That was the first song.
oh man,
It was.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it was clicking pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was something energy wise going on between the three of us. And
then with Dusty, you were like, hey, I know a guy. And we were like, yeah, sure, why not? We trust you. Just bring him on in, you know.
was I like, oh, we should have a drummer? Or?
Yeah, you were like, we need a drummer. And we were like, okay, that's fine. Which we did, though. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
It worked out. Like, Jaime and I were doing duo stuff, but at some point, if you're not feeling a certain sound, things become stagnant. So in the formation of the Squid and the Whale was like a really good interpretation of the songs that were written. And then as we continued to evolve, I found that it fit really well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I wonder if I think our listeners would be interested in hearing like how the Squid and the Whale takes music lyrically and chord progressions that you write. So like foundationally, when Squid and the Whale writes music, it really primarily starts with you working through a song, telling a story. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like that transition, how that works?
I feel like our mode, what we got into, and this is because of the way I write, there are people that can get together like a group and they write a song together. I'm not able to, I have to stew on like words before I even like bring them to the table for anybody. And it's not because I don't think like the words are good. It's because I genuinely, I can't force it if I'm not in that space, whatever that space is, because it's a space I chase all the time.
Yeah, it's the muse, right? Would that be the word that you would use? Yeah. Like you connecting with something, telling a story. Yeah,
and a lot of times what happens is like, I'd play the chords and all of a sudden there would be like one line, just like one line pops out in my head and I'm like, okay, that's a cool line. And then I'm like, okay, now I gotta write a song around it. But then it's, I would create that and then I would bring it to y'all. And then we would develop like the structure of the song. How does the song flow? How does it move? What are the melodies? Because the thing is, I write songs and y'all write music. And it's something that's super admirable. I admire y'all for that because what you're doing is you're telling a story. You're just not using words. And that's where those are things that I fall short at. So it's kind of like my words meet your notes, and together we then create a story.
I think you're selling yourself a little short.
Well, I mean,
because you're coming in for the majority of our songs. You're coming in with a melody. You're coming up with lyrics. You have a chord structure, but then one of the things that I think you're really confident in, it's easy to work with you because like you're like, hey, this is the framework I have. Why don't y'all start? We basically start playing with you musically, and then
we're like, "Oh, that part sounds good."
Yeah, exactly. So that's when Sarah-Bryan's like,
and then I'm like, "Play it again 10 times. Let's beat this dead horse. Get ready, everybody." And then you're like, "No."
But there's a really bizarre magical chemistry that you and Jaime have that like Dusty and myself would feed off of, right? So like you would come up with this, you had the lyrics, you've got a melody that's working, we like it, and then Jaime starts like fiddling on the keyboard, I'll start playing something on bass guitar, Dusty jumps in with drums, and then like Jaime and I will try to add some layers to it vocally often, and then something happens where we take this frame of a song that's perfectly great by itself, and then we like put the Squid and the Whale like finesse on it. It's a really interesting creative experience to be a part of. I love being a part of it, and yeah, like how else would you describe that to folks listening to this right now? I mean, is there anything I'm missing?
No, I think that's like super accurate. And I think too with the thing, like the musical or form chemistry that Jaime and I have comes specifically from playing with each other for such an extended period of time. Sometimes I think, oh, he's going to do this. And sometimes I'm right. And he knows, oh, she thinks I'm going to do this. So he does that. And he knows I'm going to be pissed off about it. Or sometimes he thinks that I'm going to, so it's almost like a guessing game. Like we're guessing each other's moves before that. But I think the way you and I connect is you and I listen to a lot of the same stuff. So we
Right.
like a lot of the same sounds. We like a lot of the same energy
Yeah.
that we want to emote. So I think that's why it gels well, because I think at the end of the day, we're all kind of, without realizing it, kind of funneling into the same idea in our heads. We just don't know how to express it. And it's because
Yeah.
it's like, we play that song, and all of a sudden, like, that one take, we're like, oh, that clicked that time. Do that
Right.
exact same thing next time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like some of the best recordings that we've done have been on my phone the first time we ran through it the way we wanted it to, because the energy was there, and that's something you can't recreate. Doesn't
Right.
matter how, like, on beat, how, like, fine-tuned, how tight everybody is, that first recording is always the best recording you'll ever do that song in your entire life. And it doesn't matter if it's coming from, like, an iPhone on a bass amp. It's still the best one. So
Yeah, I definitely still listen to some of our like audio files.
I do too.
Yeah.
I got them all labeled in my phone.
I love that. So you're playing.
I am.
You are playing in April with the famed
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah and Aaron.
Yeah. So it's going to be at the Thirsty Hippo. What's the date for that?
April 8th.
April 8th. It's a
Yes.
Friday.
It is a
Starts
Friday.
at 7:30 p.m.
Yes.
I believe at the Thirsty Hippo. Tickets are available now.
And they're
Which is-
cheaper if you get them now.
Yes. So get them. It's going to be a really exciting night. So this is going to be the first time that you've played alone in front of people in a long time.
Very long time. Very long time. And I'm going to be really comfortable with it. I'm going to try really hard. You know me. You know that this is kind of my nightmare. But also, I actively made the decision because I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Because I was like,
You're like, this is going to happen.
this is the next step. Like, this is what people do. So I'm going to do it, and I'm going to be okay with, like, maybe my voice is going to crack on a note, and I'll, like, be okay. But
Whatever.
what I'm not going to do is get in my head too much. That I enjoy, like we discussed earlier, missing out on your own moments because you get in your own way.
It's
in your
hard.
head.
It's hard to be present.
And I will
really
say
is.
this, and I'm gonna. Jeremiah Strickland is someone. His songwriting and his stage presence, him and Aaron's, super phenomenal. He's like true inspiration. But when he reached out to me to ask me, he said, "Would you or you and Jaime want to play?" Well, Jaime is unavailable, and I messaged him and I said, "Well, it's just me. If Jaime can make it." It'll be a surprise. And his response was, just you is enough.
Aww.
And that is what I needed to hear.
I think
in
I
that
just
moment.
felt something inside
Yeah,
my
I felt
heart.
something deep in my heart. I'll cry my car about it later. Maybe.
Yeah, that's really special.
But I thought that was really special. And I think that that's what I love about the music scene around here. Like, that's everybody's job. Like, we are supposed to support each other and build each other up. And he just perfectly embodied, like, that sense of community in that statement. So I can't wait to hear the things that he and his wife are going to play in their band and the awesome things he's going to say, because he can tell a story.
Oh, dude, that guy's a storyteller, no doubt.
Some people are just born like that. They just he probably just came out of the womb and he's like, I'm here to tell a story. I came out of the womb and I was like, no, put me back.
Yeah.
But
I don't want to be here.
I don't want to be here anymore.
Sarah, thanks so much for chatting with us. This has been
thank
really
you for
special.
having me. I love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
I love you too, Ben.
Yeah.